We hope you're all staying safe and healthy during this time. I want to introduce today's speaker, Keith Washington. He is the Vice President of Products at Prosites. Keith has more than 30 years of software product management and development experience. Prosites and PracticeMojo are great services to dental practices dental practices that can help with multi-channel patient communication, email, social media management, website, and so much more. I think you're going to find that both Keith and ProSites are very tuned into the dentistry world and some of the challenges and issues we're all going to face as dental practices open up back up for business. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Keith.
Thanks, Rebecca. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the introduction. And to everyone who's listening or will get this recording, first of all, I appreciate your time. I appreciate any dental practice that's taking the time, especially now, given the number of changes that have occurred for you and your practices. And today, we're just going to spend a few minutes to talk about how you can help your patients. And that may, as you're thinking about all the things you're doing, but I want to talk about how you can help them this week and over the next few weeks by communicating with them using your digital tools. I also want to spend a few minutes describing things you should consider now for the growth that's going to come. And I'm pretty excited about the fact that, things are starting to look up in terms of being able to reopen. This has been a difficult and strange few months for dental practices. If you think about it, the ADA recommendation on emergency dental was 2 months ago. Maybe it's almost week 9 since that communication that practices were closed except for emergency dental, or that recommendation. And now some practices are opening, and you're working to build out procedures for onboarding patients. And of course, your practice has also been working hard over this past 8 weeks to figure out how to best serve your community and keep your practice afloat. You've had so many things that you're dealing with, and I've talked to so many of dental practices where you're dealing with, what am I supposed to do about the SBA loans and the Paycheck Protection Plan? How do I acquire PPE? And I just gave my PPE to the hospitals. And what about protocol? And how do I make sure that we get our office when it's ready to be reopened? How do I get all that information? And when everything was shut down, it was one of the most difficult times in a long time for dental practices. And when it comes to dental care, it also has been one of the most confusing and concerning for consumers who are your patients. And with all the changes that have happened, patients are still looking for dentists to help them navigate their dental health. Questions like, are you open for hygiene appointments? How do I determine if I had a dental emergency? Is it safe to come back into the office? I pulled this slide from ADA this morning to talk about what the state mandates and recommendations were, and this page was updated this morning. And according to the ADA, 39 states are now open for elective dental procedures, and that's really exciting. But it's a lot of work that you guys are dealing with and a lot of communication that has to happen for your patients. There's still some states that are still open only for essential or emergencies, and as you start to open, I can't tell where you are specifically, but we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And with all of these changes, your practice needs to be able to communicate to be helpful, as well as to make sure that you get your practice moving as quickly as possible. The key is, though, that your information more than ever has to be current and near real time in order to be effective. You think about just over the past 8 weeks, and I've been doing this type of webinar for a number of weeks, and I've had to change it almost every time I've done it. But the key is that your updates have to be proactive. Your updates to your patients need to be automated, and they need to be concise, and you need to be able to do that on a regular basis. And so I want to encourage you to communicate now with your patients and communicate regularly over this next few weeks and over the next few months. If you have an appointment reminder system, I encourage you to use it now to keep communications with your patients, to help them be informed, engaged, and remembering, by the way, to come back to you for their dental needs. Right now, more than ever, you should be using your patient notification and reminder system because it has a number of benefits built into it, other than just the fact that your patients will be informed. First of all, it's automated. So you don't have to tie up a critical staff member to make phone calls to every patient to make sure that they know about their appointment or make sure they know about the status of your office. Two, it's comprehensive. You have your list of active patients right in the system, so you can make sure that you know that you're communicating with everyone. And three, it's multifunctional. If you have a reminder system like Prosites and that SmartPractice offers through PracticeMojo, you can send communications through text, through email, through phone calls, automated phone calls, and most importantly, and I'll talk about that, through postcards to keep your patients up to date. The way I think about it is over the past 4 weeks, how many times have you communicated with your patients? And I know it might seem crazy, but believe it or not, they need to be communicated to. I found out early on that a number of patients in early April, second week of April, end of April, were calling practices asking if their appointment was still on. Well, this is open for emergency dental takes away critical time because you need to communicate to them what the status of your office, what's the status of your staff. Now, as you start to think about reopening, patients who have appointments want to know about your PPE and what your procedures are, and you want to make sure that you can communicate that. I think a lot about the timeline of communication over the past number of weeks, and even today and over the next few weeks. But think about this, even today, you should have an email that goes out on the status of your office, the status of your staff. That's just so you're making sure that patients who may have an appointment coming up know where you are with respect to your status. Maybe a text regarding the status of all upcoming appointments, and I'll show you some examples of that. Consider doing an email on your office reopening policy and your office hours, and I really was excited to see the ADA's Back to Work Toolkit, and we've incorporated some of those components into our products. Maybe an email on your COVID-19 procedures, and it's really important to make sure that patients are comfortable coming into a dental office. And I've talked to dentists, and one of them who was really mad just about this topic because he was saying that it seems to me that consumers are easy to go to Home Depot and Walmart and afraid to go to a dental office who are experts in dealing with infectious diseases. And you guys are, and you've been dealing with this for years, and you know how to do this. But it's important to communicate that to consumers. And as you're reopening, if you are opening now, you might consider doing an email on your plans for rescheduling your appointments because, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, not all appointments are going to be kept at the same time. It's really a good time to send a postcard to welcome your patients back or an email about your safety protocol and your visit requirements. I'm going to show you a few examples of some of the communications that we've been doing that are templates that we provided for practices. On the left-hand side, this was talking about, this was when a particular office was only open for emergency dental procedures and was postponing elective dental visits. And what they did and what the communication does is say, this includes your appointment that was coming up on April 28th. And then we're going to contact you when we're fully open. And this gives the opportunity to let them know about that cadence. On the right-hand side is an email communication that explains what's going to happen when a patient comes into the office or when their appointment is due. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but you already know that your process for onboarding a patient is going to change. And in this case, this one recommends that they remain in the car until you're called. So you let us know you're here and then you remain in the car and we'll give you a call. And you can communicate that using your reminder system. I'll talk about this also in a few minutes, but the current environment has affected dental insurance. And I'll talk about how you can use your reminder system to verify insurance, or at least to get information if your insurance information has changed. And I'll talk about how you can use a number of tools to do that. And this is an example of a really good postcard that makes sure that patients know that your practice is going to be safe, and your practice already knows how to handle communication. So this is just ways that you can use your reminder system and automated communications even this week to communicate with the patients. And I can't stress enough that, first of all, it helps your patients out, and two, it helps you normalize and manage the return to your practice and your return to health for your particular practice. You should also take a look at your website. This is a good time to make sure that your website has the right communications. A lot of patients are going to the website in this particular one, and we're changing this on a regular basis when practices reopen, but this was a banner message that shows that they were postponing some appointments. I believe, and it's starting to bear out, that banners communicating different things on the top of a website or somewhere on the website are going to be here for a while. And so you can use your website to communicate that information. You can also use your website to communicate your patient safety policy. You should have a page on your website that talks about the patient safety policy you have in your office. We actually took the letter that the ADA has in their reopening toolkit and added it as a template for our practices. And you can modify it pretty easily, but just added it as a starting point for practices to be able to use to communicate through the website. I get a number of questions from practices about digital marketing, and is this a good time to do digital marketing? And even during this crisis, we saw a number of practices that were using digital marketing, and now even more so, you should consider starting search engine optimization, because it takes a few months, if you're not doing it, to get your ranking up to where you want it to be so that you can be competitive. And paid search, including Facebook ads and Google ads, and you may want to consider targeted ads that focus on your specialties, and I'll talk a little bit more about why that's important. Something that I learned really early on and during this crisis is that your Google My Business page must be up to date, and it must be up to date regularly. You need to have your business listings real time with your hours and availability and services, what you offer, because your hours have changed if you're open for emergency dental only, and they will change. You may have to be open more hours in order just to see the same patient. And if your hours on your Google My Business say, for instance, that you're closed on Friday because you haven't changed that in a number of years or in a number of months, but you really are open, then you may lose potential patients who need care or who are looking to come to you back to your office. One of the things that Google did during the over the past 8 weeks was suspend reviews. They weren't taking reviews, but they're starting to open up now. And so you need to make sure that you're properly responding to reviews and make sure that you have access to the review information, because they're starting to accept reviews again. And as you know, reviews are an important part to make sure that your patients or potential patients see you in the best light. Google also added a COVID-19 post on the Google My Business page. And so you can easily go into Google My Business and put a COVID-19 update tab right on your website so that you can keep up to date with your hours of operation, what any changes you have to your practice onboarding process. And it's a great little way for people to easily see, potential patients to easily see what is going on with your office. And I thought that Google My Business did a great job in providing that. One other thing that has become more important over the last few months is social media. If you've been around, stuck at home, or maybe had to slow down a little bit, you realize that all of us are now on Facebook, and you should be considering using social media for real-time proactive communications. So if your practice hasn't opened, but is about to open or only open for emergency dental, you should provide a regular status of your office hours and where your office, where you are with your office. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because your patients and people who are prospective patients think of their dental office as part of the community. And social media is a community-based tool. And your patients really want to know how things are going. And have time to figure that out or think about that even now. So provide a status of your office and hours, if any. If you're only open for emergency or urgent dental care, make sure you let them know that, and then provide posts about your staff, because we care about your staff. When we look at Prosites looks at website traffic, the top 3 visited pages on any dentist website are the home page, meet the doctor, because they want to know about you, then about the staff. And so it's really that sense of community and that sense of relationship that's important. And so is your staff back to work? What have they been doing? I've seen some great things come out of the dental practice community on social media. Doctors who've been posting videos, short videos every week, or doctors who are posting, or practices that are posting what each hygienist or dental assistant or front office person is doing if they were at home. It's really an opportunity to engage the community. And now, as you're reopening, you should focus on considering your reopening post, and what it is that you want to communicate to potential patients. And always make sure you link to your contact forms and phone numbers. I pulled a number of different posts over time from different practices. The first one on the left is that this was just a post saying that this was a main office, that the offices are closed because of COVID-19, and we'll be calling all patients. I really wish that they would use their reminder, but to reschedule, so don't worry. And so this is an opportunity just to let people know where we are. On the right-hand side, Apple Dentist, I can't remember exactly where this dental office was, but they're open. Just as a reminder, we're open. And we're ready to see you. And by the way, they talk about safety. They talk about what they're going to provide to the patient, not just for the practice, but for the patient, and really, calls to action on Facebook. The one that I liked the most that I saw today was a practice called Regency Family Dental, and they built this Facebook post, and we may use this as some of our post ideas that come with PracticeMojo. But where they broke out the different components of their health and safety. And again, even though you've been working hard, it's good to communicate that, including wellness screening for this one, curbside checkout, check-in and a waiting room, social distancing, a wellness zone, all of the things that they wanted to communicate or that may want to be communicated. They've put into a post. I'll guarantee you they put it on their website, and they used it in email communications, and you can take one component and repurpose it. And now I want to talk about getting ready to grow and how you can start now. And I've talked a little bit about that early on, but if you think about it and all the things that you've had to deal with, patients are going to need care more than ever. There's so many patients that, didn't have emergency dental needs over the past 8 weeks, but had urgent dental needs or had problems that they were just dealing with, and their needs are going to change. And that means that you may have to prioritize your care. And what that means to me as a potential or as a patient who has an appointment on June 1, for my cleaning, you may not be able to take me on June 1 because you have higher priorities. And so you need to make sure that you're thinking about how you communicate your reopening plans for given patients' appointments. I saw someone who sent out a message that says, if you have a scheduled appointment, we're going to reach out to you, or you'll get a notification that we're going to have to reschedule that appointment. So you don't just show up because you said you were open, it's June 9 and I have a cleaning. And then you won't be able to take them because you have refactored really your schedule. Also, as we talked about, patients are going to be concerned about their safety and about your protocol. And most importantly, as I mentioned, patients are going to be concerned about insurance, dental insurance, and the cost, because there are so many patients who are out of work or may have lost dental insurance. And you have to think about how you're going to prioritize your care or how you're going to communicate with your patients about that. And so what you can be doing even now is have your recare campaigns ready and considering emails, text, and postcards, and include your PPE protocol in your communications. You want to communicate, as I just talked about, letting your patients know what your scheduling priorities are and communicating that automated, not by calling every one of them, but using your automated system to do that. Also do that on your website. I really think this is a good opportunity to use postcards to incorporate a personal touch for your active patients and patients who are due for recare in the next 3 to 6 months. I find that there are little things that excite me that didn't used to when I was running around driving back and forth to work. Things that excite me now are the Amazon delivery and mail. I love mail again because I just look forward to anything coming to my door. And so this is an opportunity to use postcards, and SmartPractice has done a really good job in providing postcard templates for you to use in your practice where, here's two examples of them. Call to schedule your checkup and we're back and ready to see you. Wouldn't that be a nice touch for your office to be able to send them out, just to let patients know it's time to come back, and what your policies and procedures are? A couple of other things that I've heard from dental practices and that we think are important is that you may have to review your pricing options for your elective procedures. You want to make sure, of course, that you want to maximize the time that you spend or the money that you make in a given week. And so you have to consider if you're going to offer discounts for fee-for-service patients. Make sure you know which procedures, which work, and you already do, are important and valuable to your practice, and focus, and as a matter of fact, needed by patients more than ever. Focus your marketing and communication efforts on these procedures, including things like making sure that you have the right pages in your website that are optimized for these key procedures. Make sure that you do a campaign for people who need specific procedures and let them know whether or not you're going to offer a discount for it. And then you can use your communication tools to do that. It's also a good time to upgrade your website now. Actually, it was better a couple of weeks ago, but before you go full bore, make sure that your website is up to date. Make sure that you take the opportunity now to customize it to match your brand. If your website design is 2 or 3 years old, change it and make sure that it's current and has the right look that you want it to have. You also want to always make sure your website is secure, and then potentially adjust your images to match the new normal. In our websites, and we've seen a number of practices who've changed the view that they have on their website from just someone smiling to pictures of dental practices that have proper infection control procedures. So you want to consider that. And then make sure, as I talked about, your PPE protocol page, your COVID-19 patient information page ready and updated on a current, to be current, so that when people, consumers or patients, are coming to your office, they know. There's a couple of other things that as you reopen, and I think about this and have thought about this over the past number of weeks, that you can do to reduce your need for patient interaction, except when you are working on their mouth. And they include things like patient pre-screening with online forms. We have so many of our practices who use our Prosites websites that still have a fillable PDF or a PDF that they print out and then hand out, or so many practices that are still using the tab and paper inside the office and the clipboard. It's really a good time, and we've been talking about this, and you've been thinking about it for a number of years, to use online forms to capture information. And I mean real online forms that capture information, provide critical care assessments on your to the practice, and then that you can move right into your practice management system. We've already talked about a PPE protocol for you and your patients. One of the things that you've seen is the ability to text message. And with our PracticeMojo system, you can send a text message right from the dashboard when you're ready to see a patient. We've seen a lot of growth in teledentistry, and you can use that before and after visits. And for instance, we added live chat a year ago, and now see that growing because you can answer questions from patients without having to tie up your phone. And then lastly, online bill pay from the phone. So anything you can do to reduce the amount of paper, anything you can do that you can reduce the amount of interactions that a patient has to have with you, that's a good opportunity for you to be able to increase, the level of safety in your practice. Prosites provides, and a number of companies provide online forms. And one of the things that we did was took the ADA patient screening form and added it as a pre-visit questionnaire. So you can get information about their COVID status a day before they come into the office, and then you can make decisions. I talked to a practice just last night. Probably, maybe I shouldn't say it, but the practice said that they got a call from a person who said, I have an appointment, but I think I may have coronavirus. And they said, well, then you can't come in. And they said, but I need help. And they said, well, we just like you to just wait a little bit. And the next day, the patient called in and said, I think I'm good. I don't have coronavirus. And they said, well, why don't we get you tested, and then we can make a decision about that. So you really want to make sure that you have the opportunity to capture that information before the patient comes into the office. I do want to say a couple of things about this last couple of slides. First of all, SmartPractice and Prosites are here to help. They've done a great job, SmartPractice, in working with us to offer delayed billing on most new products and product upgrades. We wanted to hold off on billing practices for new products that they needed, like patient reminder systems that have, email, text, phone, and postcards. And we're also offering discounted pricing on those products throughout the summer as you move back into grow mode. Our team is standing by. We made sure the Prosites team was standing by to help real time, and also SmartPractice is standing by even now to help you. And you heard from Rebecca right at the beginning, and Rebecca is your contact person. And I think that this is really important. Right now, more than ever, you need a person to help you, not a robot or I'll get back to you. And Rebecca is there today to help you get started. I'll say this before we take questions. I talked to a dentist at the end of last week, and he had just reopened his practice, and I asked him how he was doing, and he said, and how things were going. He said he'd handled everything well. He had all the equipment he needed. He knew the process that he was supposed to go through. And of course, he knows how to treat patients. And he said, I'm just tired. He said, I've had to think about things that I've never had to think about before. And it just is exhausting. But now I feel like next week I got it. And he also said that it was really important that he paired up with another doctor to to make sure, hey, how are you doing this or how are you doing that? And I was really encouraged to hear about his excitement about growing. And I think this is a good time for you to be able to use tools to get your patients back in and really focus on growing your practice and getting everything back to the way it was. I really appreciate the time. This is Rebecca. I hope that you found this information helpful. If Prosites marketing communications are a good fit for your practice, this is one thing I want you to write down. Contact Rebecca Seelan at SmartPractice. Here is her phone number. She can help you today. She can answer any questions that you have. She is there for you. And SmartPractice is behind you in making sure that we help you grow. I'm going to take a few minutes to answer questions online. If you weren't here at the beginning of the presentation, just know that you can ask questions in the questions box. This ends the audio portion of our webinar. I really appreciate you taking the time today, or if you're just listening to this recording, but we're going to stay online for a few minutes and just answer questions online for any questions that you have. Thanks again and have a great day.